Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is a very, very special day here as we are celebrating episode number 100 of the Nightly News Podcast. It's been 3.5 years in the making since February of 2016 when we first came on. We did have our best of show last week where I tried my best to give the story of the Nightly News Podcast, but we are so happy. And of course, to join us on this momentous episode, the president of Central Penn College, Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams. Dr. Fedrizzi-Williams, thank you so much for joining us today.
Are you kidding? I can't believe I'm your 100th episode guest.
You were on, listen to this. This is what's
How
excellent.
many have I been on?
So this, I believe, is your fourth or
That's
fifth.
what I thought. I thought fourth.
But you were on episode 50, you were on episode 75, and now you're on episode 100.
Oh, that's interesting.
And you were on even before, you were on when you first came here as VPA, so you were on even previous to that.
Right.
So you've hit all of our milestone
The major
episodes.
milestones. Well, I'm very flattered you asked me to participate today.
And of course, we are also celebrating the podcast. If you are listening to this on the day it comes out on August 28th, Dr. Fedrizzi will be our guest of honor, so we are looking forward to that and to hopefully seeing some of the members that helped start this club. So we're so excited that we have this opportunity to get to 100, and hopefully it's not another 3.5 years till we get to 200. Also being joined here by Nightly News Media Club President Brian Christiana. Brian, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Professor. It's always a great time to be here in the studio with you.
And of course, Nightly News Secretary Parker Rose. Parker, it's such a pleasure to have you today.
It's great to be on the 100th podcast, Professor Miller.
And I think both of you were on episode 75, so this is just like getting back together.
Well, it's crazy. Episode 50 just seemed like, a month ago, it seemed like, with me, Dr. Fedrizzi,
I remember
Michael.
that.
Because I remember we talked about football. All four of us cheered for a different team in the NFC
That's
East.
right.
Crazy.
That's right.
So, well, we have so much to talk to you about today. So, first part of the podcast here, we're going to. I've identified a couple of specific questions that I wanted to chat with you about, kind of where we are in Central Penn land, if you will. Second part of the podcast, Brian and Parker have collated some student questions from many of our students all over campus, and have some questions for you directly.
Wonderful. I love it.
Although, of course, Dr. Fedrizzi, you are always somebody who asks that students provide questions.
All the time.
If you ever see Dr. Fedrizzi on campus, she is certainly willing to answer your questions. So I don't want it to seem like you're not willing to do that, and they have to go through this channel on the podcast.
You know what? They're not afraid to come up to me.
Well, that's good, right?
I meet with students quite frequently, so I love it.
Well, so it has been since episode 75, so it's been about 6 months since you've last been on.
Okay.
And I want to kind of look back at, so it's been about 2 years since you've been the president.
Right.
You were interim for about a year,
Right.
and it's been just over 1 year. We recently celebrated your inauguration.
Yeah.
Now, what an amazing day that was.
Man.
Beautiful weather. We had the nice reception afterward, and just the genuine nature that you have, the honest nature that you have, and the what you shared was just, there couldn't have been a dry eye in the house.
You know what, Paul? I appreciate that so much. That day for me, people ask, what did you think of it? And going into it, you don't have an expectation. I've been to a few inaugurations. I really wanted this to be low key. I almost felt uncomfortable with the attention being on me, and I thought, why does everyone want to come here for this? This seems crazy. And so what do? I start reading articles. What is the point of a president's role at these inaugurations? And it's all about sharing my vision with the college community and then really sharing where I want the college to go. And I thought, okay, this is really important. So that morning I went up to do a sound check, which I didn't have to do, but I know the three of you will appreciate because I wanted to hear what the mic sounded like. So I snuck up there to do my own sound check. And there were faculty and staff clearing off the chairs, setting up chairs, putting down fans. And I was struck with the emotion that these people were here taking time out of their day to set up for this occasion. So I got very emotional, and I thought, this is insane. And then the actual ceremony came, and I finally told myself, okay, you need to just relax and enjoy this. And then listening to the presentations, Brian was one of the speakers, and he was remarkable. My former president from SUNY Orange was like, "Who is that kid? He is amazing." And I said, "Oh, he's mine. You're not taking him." And I couldn't, I was so overwhelmed, and I started to get choked up at one point towards the end, and I looked up and I saw probably 2/3 of the audience just sobbing with me. And the gravity of the day hit me. So of my professional career has to be one of the top 2 or 3 moments I've ever had.
That's unreal. Brian, tell us about how you were part of the inauguration and how you developed your speech that you gave.
Well, I received an email from Mary Wetzel. The event happened in May, so I would say it was around like beginning of April. Just asking, hey, you are invited. A couple people asked if you would want to speak at the event. So I was like, yeah, of course, great day. Help a good friend out in Dr. Fedrizzi. My whole speech, actually, I reached out to iHeart to ask them for like insight, like how would you go about this? It was actually Bob Howard, one of our speakers at the Nightly News Speaker Series, and he helped me a lot with it because he's a motivational speaker and all that, and he helped me come up with looking at the future of the college. Because he said, that's one thing you're really going to have to get across is Dr. Fedrizzi's here for the future of the college. Right. So when he told me that, I just went with that. And that was just by far one of the coolest days of my life.
Aww.
And honestly, the coolest part about it was walking with all of you down the path towards it. And that music, man, that was just, wow, that really got me right in the feels.
I know.
And since the inauguration, there's actually been, you had a camera crew chronicling the day,
right.
And I've actually since seen the video. I mean, you want to talk about powerful.
I appreciate it.
When I saw that, when I saw myself, I went, I was like, no way, that was so. But walking with Jared Reif and Dr. Fedrizzi and all them, it was just so cool.
It was a great day.
Well, I'm really glad, and again, very lucky. The weather was a little
Beautiful.
warm, but it was still
warm.
nice.
But it had. Do you remember that week? There were like torrential downpours that entire week, every day until Thursday, and even Thursday they couldn't even put the chairs out because there was like tornado force winds. So it ended up being a great day.
You know, Dr. Fedrizzi, you mentioned the legacy and the future of the college, but as the president of this institution, one of the things that I think about a lot is the history of this. Those of you listened to last week's Best Of, Todd Milano, before he retired, came on the podcast, and I got to learn a lot more about the history of the college. Todd says, and he believes, that Central Penn was actually founded prior to 1881, and talked about some of the research that he's done. Now that you are officially in your role and have been for a year, and you look back at the history of the college, what have you done, or what might you be able to do in the future to preserve and even highlight in a little bit more of this great history that we have at Central Penn?
I think the history is unbelievable, and I think even more than that, the way this college has evolved through the century is remarkable, because a lot of institutions don't evolve, and that can be their demise. And we have evolved in such a way where, you know, we were business oriented when it was a need to be business oriented, and then under the Milano era, just the foresight to add, okay, we need associate's degrees. We needed to be regionally accredited. We needed bachelor's degrees. Then we added a master's degree. And the history is unbelievable. It's what separates us from a lot of the other institutions. We are very different in this region than a lot of other colleges. That's a good thing, because we have a very specific purpose. So for me, preserving it is, first of all, you never erase where you came from, and you don't try to be something you're not either. Right? You don't want to become an institution that's so far from who you are and so far from your mission that people don't recognize you. So that's not the point. So it's about being able to preserve who we are, but expand in a way to help people and provide accessibility that maybe we couldn't do before because we didn't have the means.
I think that's fantastic, and I love the fact that we get to come down to the Boyer House to do the podcast, and a lot of our school's history is here. There's so much in our archives, if you will, that is here, and I'd love to maybe at some point figure out a way to maybe display some of this information in a better way. We do have the museum on campus as well, but there's just so much history here. And again, to your point, we have a history that a lot of colleges in this region, even in the state, just cannot compare with the history that we've had. I would love if we maybe have a little museum here on campus that the alumni could come to.
Well, you're totally right, but we need a digital archive too. I think it's a great student. This is like one of my dreams here. I think we need to have a student who's interested in art history or art preservation, as someone who's into photography. We have so many documents. We have newspaper articles, clippings, photographs. If we can digitally archive them and then create a virtual site, then we're preserving it as well.
Wow, I never even thought about that.
Oh, yeah. We need to get there.
We may have to talk about that off air. I might have a couple of ideas of something
good.
we might be able to do, because this is something I'm very interested in ever since I had the opportunity to talk to Todd.
It's important that we remember who we are and where we came from. And a lot of the things we're looking to do now in terms of programming, we're looking back. What programs were popular? What certificates changed people? Who are some of our most successful graduates, and what programs did they come from? And do we start offering some of them again? So you can't forget where you came from.
So one of the things that anybody who's involved at all on campus here knows, and maybe this is where we can bring Parker and Brian in just a moment, you've solicited for a strategic plan input from faculty, staff, and students. You are in the middle of developing a strategic plan from 2020 through 2024. I would absolutely love to hear maybe what some of the preliminary discussions are and some of the big major items that will be in the strategic plan down the line.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the college is at a real turning point in our history, and we are at a crossroads, and we're figuring out where we're going to be and what we're going to look like and how do we get there. Those are big questions. And so I want this process to be as comprehensive as possible. And it was really important for me to have some objectivity, because we all have ideas and we all have things we want to do. So we hired an external consultant, and he will be coming in. He will be meeting with all the constituencies on campus. And we're going to have a lot of ways to do this. But essentially, we start with, and we're just starting this process now, what we're calling lay of the land. And we're going out and we're going to research everything that we're currently doing, all of our current practices, how many students, the demographics, the programs that we have, the success of each program, when students are leaving the college, if we have students leaving, when are they leaving, what term, why, when they go on schedule gap, who doesn't come back and why don't they come back? These are important questions to ask, because we have to figure out how we can help students graduate. That's why we are here, and then to obviously get them jobs after. So right now we're at the lay of the land process, and we're gathering all this information. Then we're going to be interviewing one-on-ones with 20 to 30 people. And then in addition, we're going to have all these focus groups. So we're going to meet with students, faculty, staff, alumni, community members. And then we're going to have digital tools. So we'll be having surveys, and we have a brand new app coming out this month, and the app will be interactive, and students will be able to give as much feedback as possible. It can be anonymous, so if they don't want to speak up in a forum, but they want to send something and remain anonymous, they can do that. So the whole idea is we're doing an issues-based strategic plan, so we're identifying some issues where we might have gaps and how we want to get there, but then we're also taking something called a blue ocean theory, which is, think of an ocean and how much land, but how much it takes up geographically, right, on the earth, and how much of that is untouched, and we haven't even discovered what we could potentially find in that ocean. Same thing with this plan. What is out there that we have never done, that higher education hasn't done, that we can tap into and maybe try something truly innovative that other institutions can't do because there's so many layers of red tape? We're able to move quickly. So part of this process, I'm going to have a rapid response team. Let's say we meet with the students. They come up with a great idea, and we don't want to wait until 2020. We can do it now. And so we're going to have a group of people that looks at those types of requests and say, this is something we need to be working on. So I am beyond excited, but it's going to be 4 months of a lot of work.
With all of the things that you're already working on, be it the nonprofit transition, obviously just going through your inauguration and many, many other initiatives you're working on, at what point does it become a little overwhelming that you?
Oh, it's totally overwhelming. But the thing is, there has to be an actual plan. So a lot of what I've implemented in my 3 years here has been reactionary. It's been, we have a problem, we need to fix it, we need to make it better. That's where the food pantry came from. We had students running out of meal plans. We needed a way to have food for students, so we came up with a food pantry. I want us to be ahead of that. I want to stop being reactionary and really start planning out, where do we want to be and how do we get there? I don't want us to always be reacting to problems that we haven't thought through already.
Now, Brian and Parker, just because of your immense involvement on campus, I think is being polite. You guys are always so busy doing things.
Yeah, they are.
You two are as plugged in as anyone here on campus. If Dr. Fedrizzi is asking the students for some insight on what the strategic plan could be, if you were to be asked for information feedback from a student's perspective to Dr. Fedrizzi's strategic plan, what were some of the things that often come up in these conversations with you and other students?
Well, believe it or not, Professor Miller, Dr. Fedrizzi and I have already done it. We've already talked about this already.
Brian came to me the day after the article came out and said, I have ideas.
Literally, it was one main concern. It's been in the talks for many years already, so, I mean, it's nothing new, but it was the idea of coming up with the sports complex. How it could benefit the student athletes. It could benefit the communications department.
Oh, there's no question.
So,
if we didn't have to travel to every game, if we had the home games, that'd be more accessible to campus. That gives people who maybe don't have transportation an opportunity to be
more
part
jobs,
of it. More jobs potentially. It'd certainly be easier for us logistically to do it.
Community. It would help with the community as well. I mean, it would give the community a reason to come out and support the school. It really would do such great things for this college.
So that's one thing that we brought up. Parker, what were some other things that you had thought about in your conversations with other students?
A lot of conversations I had with other students is a lot of students keep talking about like on-campus life in general, like mostly the resident students. Like they talk about like, I know this is more towards like activities, but we had a meeting a couple months ago with all the clubs. It's like, how can we make the weekends more fun? Because there's some students on this campus that do not drive. They don't, because they live far away, that they don't have a car. And just like making on-campus activities for the students to do, or like another topic is a bigger gym.
Yeah.
Like I know it's hard in the underground that we have all the office space, but a lot of the students are coming like with the gym and like more activities on campus. That's the biggest questions I get when it comes to that.
It's helpful. And those are important questions. And I think when we go through this process and as we go through, you guys need to bring all of that up. Even if it's something that you think, well, the college can't do this or they won't do this. Share those ideas, because at least we have a starting point. And maybe there's some things we can do now, even if it's not build a sports complex. Maybe there's other things we can do.
You brought up a very good, valid point, Parker. It was all about spacing and all that.
And also, I keep hearing about the meal pricing. Like today, I paid $3.50 for that French toast pieces.
Yeah. It was a little steep.
A little bit, but that's another thing. Students, like there's students that we're only in week 6 and already are out of money on their meal plan. So
in a general sense, though, the feedback from the new dining has been very
Culinary
positive.
is a very good company. They are very good at what they do. Their staff, I really enjoy interacting with their staff.
But Parker brought up a good point. I want to talk about that because I meet with the Student Government Association regularly, and food services comes up regularly. Similar, I don't want to call them complaints, it's more concerns. And students running out of meal plans, that is a concern. So we've already started addressing that on our end. But I think there's a whole lot we can do. Like I started looking into colleges where faculty and staff, which we have a very generous faculty and staff.
Oh, absolutely.
That donate, right? But what if we are able to set up a fund where people could donate to meal plans? So when students run out, there's a way to share additional funding. I think there's creative things like that we just haven't even scratched the surface with yet.
Well, one thing also, I mean, working in residence life and all that, more students need to take advantage of the food pantry.
There's a lot of things that I think that the students could take more advantage of. And in fairness, our activities calendar is packed. I mean, we have Adrian on every single month.
Adrian Thoman does so much for this college.
Amazing.
She honestly, I believe, needs an assistant of some sort.
Well, are you signing yourself up for the job?
I mean, honestly, running the activities advisory at this point, I have no problem doing that after college.
Now, do you think it'd be a student work residence, or do you want actual qualified personnel?
I think hiring someone after, I think that'd be a good idea.
Because she does do a lot. She
does an incredible
She's away from
job.
home a lot, helping the students on campus.
Yeah.
So
poor Sean.
Well, Dr. Fedrizzi, we're almost done with this first segment. There was one really important question that I wanted to ask you before we got out of this segment, and here it is. If you had to point to one thing since your official first day of being president here, not the interim, what would you say is the most important thing that you've done in your time here so far?
Oh, one thing? I'm a little torn because the food pantry was a pretty near and dear thing to my heart, but I think the free housing initiative offers opportunities to people who otherwise wouldn't have even thought about living on campus. And I had a student come up to me at the club fair this term, and he said, I saw you on YouTube. And I didn't really know what he was talking about at first. And he's like, no, he goes, really? He's like, I have to thank you. You're the reason I'm here.
That's
and
awesome.
I smiled, and he said, if you didn't have that free housing, I wouldn't be here. and it brought tears to my eyes.
I actually remember that because
You were there.
you were talking in the drama club table because
Yes, you
Nightly
were
was
there.
and I even was like, that was so generous.
It's
and so-
powerful. It's powerful. So that would probably be the one thing I'm most proud of so far.
And we've had, we're very pleased with the amount of new students coming,
Yeah.
especially I'm already kind of in the middle, because we're in the middle of scheduling right now, and I got to tell you that the number of new starts in fall is residential is very high.
It's exciting.
We're Brianna and I and Leanne, we're really excited over in that office. It's going to be a good time in the fall.
It really is.
We just got to get these kids involved with the stuff we have going on.
We do.
Absolutely.
Hey, join the Nightly News.
Yeah, there you go.
That is true.
Well, that's going to wrap up our first segment, but Dr. Fedrizzi will be right back with us after a short break, so stay tuned.
What's up? This is Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams, and you are listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to episode number 100 of the Nightly News Podcast. We are so fortunate to be joined by the president of Central Penn College, Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams, also being joined here by Nightly News President Brian Christiana and Nightly News Secretary Parker Rose. For the second segment here, the gentlemen, I tasked them with going out on campus, talking to some of our students, and coming up with some questions for Dr. Fedrizzi. So I am going to turn it over, if you guys want to alternate back and forth, and feel free to follow up with any comments that you have after the question and after the answer. So, Brian, start us off with the first question for Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams.
All right, Dr. Fedrizzi, what can we do as students? What can we do to help you with your presidency?
You know, I love that question because you made it a point during the inauguration speech to say that it was on everyone in that audience
Yes.
to help with the presidency. And you're right. And what I want to say first is that there's something called collective impact, and you might have heard that term before. Collective impact is when you have a group of people working together for the greater good, and that's how things get done. Things don't get done when it's one person, right? So I believe in collective impact, and what I want students to do, how students can get involved and help, is exactly what the two of you always do, which is keeping me informed, letting me know what's working, letting me know what's not working. That's not to say that you don't go to a department chair when there's an academic issue. I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about ideas. You saw something, you visited a friend at a different college, and you thought something was really cool. I think that's something that's exciting. So things that you think can add to the education or the student learning experience, bring those types of ideas to me, especially since we're starting strategic planning. Get involved with that process.
It's an exciting time.
It is, very much so.
Parker?
The next question for you, Dr. Fedrizzi, is what recent campus activities have caught your attention?
Well, I went to the 2019 summer fashion show.
Oh, that was interesting.
I actually thought it was very entertaining. I thought the students did a great job. I thought the way they organized the music segments, and they were so concerned with me being there because
I
of some
know,
of
they
the
were like
lyrics.
scared that you
They
were
were
there.
scared because they had some, innuendos and some language in songs. It wasn't the radio edits. And
Yeah, I know.
I'm not really a shy person, but I would understand why someone would be intimidated by me being there. But I thought they did such a great job. And you know what struck me the most is the amount of students that were there.
Yeah.
I am trying to remember an event since I've been here where that many residential students were in one location cheering each other on, getting up and dancing at portions. It was so. My husband and I left, and we were the oldest people there. But when we left, we were like laughing and just so engaged, and felt so good just being around all of you. So that's probably the most recent. Of course, I love the athletics. I'm excited soccer starting again. I want to bring my boys to the games and bring my puppy to the games, and so I'm looking forward to that too.
Well, and to follow up on the athletics, we haven't really announced this yet, but the Nightly News is going to continue to expand. So 2019, we covered all the home baseball games.
Yeah.
We are planning on covering 6 soccer games between men's
Wow.
and women's soccer, and we already have scheduled 10 women's and men's basketball games.
Oh boy, you guys
So
will be busy.
We are continuing to expand with athletics too, so we really could use the support of not only just club members, but of the students, faculty, and staff at large.
They're so much fun.
Yeah, because we really, especially basketball last year, was one of the
That was
best times I had.
That was probably one of the biggest for the Nightly News, honestly, because you had you and Christian Fulp, you had Laura Lee, myself and Parker. I was doing PA. Parker does the book, the scoreboard. He does everything. Parker's a big utility player for the athletics.
And also, just to, like what Dr. Fedrizzi said about the students during the basketball season, especially close to the playoffs, and like look at all the residents and all the community
That's
members that
great.
came out and supported the school. We practically were tearing down the house when like Jalen hit that 3-pointer to win the game.
Jalen
at the
Burton
end.
Jones is probably one of the best things that's happened to this athletic program at Central Penn
Well, there's no
College.
question. She's one of a kind. There's no doubt about it. All right, next question, Brian.
Yes. Who are some people that you feel have impacted the campus during your time in office so far?
That's such a tough question because there's been so many people.
Well, definitely Christy.
Oh, Christy. Christy's amazing. Christy Costanzo is my executive assistant, and she keeps me going from meeting to meeting, place to place. There's a couple people. I think some of the students I've had contact with have been incredible. Brian and Parker, the two of you, and I'm not just saying that. I really think you're both remarkable young men. Parker, the way you organized the walk a mile in her shoes. Brian, the events that you're part of, the way you're always willing. The students motivate me. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that we wouldn't be a college without students. So
You're right.
You are all number one in my book. In terms of other people here, Romeo Azandakhan.
He's the man.
Yes, he is.
He is the man. And you know, we needed student services to be expanded. We had a lot of things we needed to do in student services, and I asked him, I gave him a challenge, I gave him a few things, and he took charge with it. Now we have a full-fledged advising center. He helped get the pantry off the ground. And Adrienne Thoman. You both mentioned her.
Yeah.
You realize how incredible she is, the amount she does for student engagement. So she'd be another one of those people. There are professors here that are remarkable. Paul Miller. I feel like I reach out to Professor Miller all the time when I'm trying to do task forces, and I have to be careful because I go to a lot of the same people. But Professor Miller's on the President's Leadership Academy.
Which, by the way, I have to tell you, is
Are you enjoying it?
remarkably insightful. It honestly,
Wait do you see this week's?
I've been so interested in doing things like this before, and the opportunity that I have just being selected, I appreciate so much. But to be honest with you, what I've learned in just the 3 class periods, I don't want to call them class periods, the 3 leadership development sessions
There you go.
has been unlike anything I've ever
good.
been a part of
That's
before. I think I kind of threw you for a curveball last time because I raised my hand, and I'm not going to repeat what I said, but you seemed very surprised by what I said, if you remember.
I remember, but that's because, you know what, we all see ourselves differently than other people see us, right? And so sometimes the way you see yourself is nothing like how you're perceived. And I'm talking about in a positive way with Professor Miller, where I had to kind of remind him, hey, superstar, you wouldn't be here if we didn't all love you. So it's tough to name a few people, but I'll leave it at those 3 for now.
Parker?
What caught your attention about the college when you made the decision to come here?
Oh, it's a couple of things. First, I would say the students. And the reason I say the students is because I identified with our student population. So I've been a residential student. I've been a first-term student. I've been a transfer student, a commuter student, an online day, evening class student. I've been a student who had children when I studied. So when I came here and I interviewed and I met some of the students and I had a student give me a tour and he was just fantastic, I thought, okay, I can relate to everything that they're all feeling. And so I felt very drawn to the student population. Also, the career focus, it came at a time where I felt very passionately that our purpose has to be to help people get employed. And not just get employed with a job skill, get employed with career skills that they can take to any job that they want to have. So between the mission of the college and the student population, I was sold.
All right. How does becoming the president of the college impact your family life?
Well, that's an interesting question. So my family is my number one priority.
Well, it should be.
Right.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. I have learned that I don't have to choose between the two. And when I was studying women leaders and mothers specifically, a lot of them felt like they had to choose between being a mom and working full time. And I realized I didn't have to. So I focus on work-life integration. I bring my sons to our events. My husband comes with me. He came to the fashion show. You know, he wrote down some of the songs because he loved them. So we have a playlist now. We actually listened to those songs on the way to New York this past weekend. I will not repeat them on the podcast, but you could reach out to the students. But I realized I don't have to pick between the two. So having a family life it's really tough when you're in a demanding job. However, I have boundaries too. So my son Jake starts middle school. And I'm going to his new student orientation. I won't miss that. Every year I tell my sons, pick one field trip or one class party you want mom to be at. And I'll make sure I'm there during the day, not during the day. I do their homework with them. I'm involved. I go to all of their lacrosse games. You have to find balance in your life, and making them part of Central Penn. They give me ideas too, by the way. Yeah. Like my son Jake, because he knows we started esports here. That's another thing we started. And we're looking to maybe make a varsity team. He wants to talk to me about starting a video gaming like program where it's actually video game design. And I created a new media program in New York. So he's like, Mom, are you going to create a new media program at Central Penn so when I graduate, I can take video game design? So
that's actually really picking up too. There's a university down in Florida, Full Sail University, and that's they're really huge with that too.
Huge. I had a lot of students from SUNY transfer there.
Yeah,
for video game design. So they're giving me ideas about how to make the college better too.
Parker?
What are some long-term plans with the food service on campus?
So I think that there's a couple of things. You hit on some of them with affordability. I would love to extend the hours. I heard that we have some challenges with our student athletes and even our students that work where, they have to close at a certain time and they have a business model that they have to follow. So looking at how do we expand those hours, how do we bring in additional food service options for students. I would love to have a cafe somewhere on campus where we're talking real cappuccinos and coffee and somewhere where students could go for breakfast food. So having more of those. Of course, we have to get our student population up to make sense for that kind of thing. But I do think that there's other creative things we can do, and I'm looking forward to that because food services is a priority for me too. I know it's important to the students.
One final question. We talked about a lot of the questions, the student questions, but this is something that I want to pose to everybody, and this is a little off script. This is a very important episode, obviously number 100, and I want to talk to the gentleman first, and then I'll let you kind of think about this for a minute. I would love to know, especially for the two of you who have been very involved since almost immediately when you came up, what was it about the Nightly News that made you want to be a part of our club, Parker?
Quite simple. Convinced.
Somebody convinced you.
When I came on campus, I never thought that I was going to be a writer for a club or be on a podcast until I talked to Brian, and then he introduced me to you, Professor Miller, and I got on my first podcast. I don't remember which one it was, but then you started asking me about joining the club, and at first I was like, I don't know, I'm not really a writer, I don't know a lot about media and all. And then here I am, literally a couple terms after I joined. I'm now the secretary, writing stories, and now being on any podcast I can get. And and going back on, I'm glad I ended up joining the club.
Well, you've also been on the cover of our last two publications, which is pretty amazing.
That's true.
I mean, the stuff that, honestly, Parker, we are so lucky to have you because as somebody who is a non-comm student, and what's interesting now is, even though it is for our communication majors, I would say a lot of the people aren't even in communication.
Parker's
Dylan was
not
in
a
business.
comm major?
No.
What's your major?
I'm an accounting major, Dr. Fedrizzi.
I had no idea you were an accounting major.
We would love to have him, but he seems content with what he's doing.
I mean, that's amazing.
So, I got to tell you that it's been wonderful to have you because not only are you in the National Guard, so that takes up some of your time. You're also in other clubs. You're a major part of what goes on in the theater with the CP players. You're a major part of what we're doing. You're in Colleges Against Cancer, and you're doing the Real Man on Campus. I mean, it's just... Parker, let me put it to you this way. You're going to be very, very, very successful in your life. Because if we could have every single person be like you, this campus, we would be Harvard. I'm serious. Like, it is really remarkable what you've done in a short period of time. And I guess, if nothing else, we're happy that you're still going to be around for a little while.
Well, I really appreciate those kind comments. I really do.
Brian, what was it about what we have going on that made you basically almost immediately become a part? But not only that, you are the youngest president in Nightly News history.
Wow.
Extra credit. That was honestly it.
When did I ever give you extra credit for doing stuff for the club?
Extra credit to come to the meeting, man. That was it. All you said in class was, I'll give you extra credit. Just come attend the meeting. I couldn't come until the end. So, I mean, my whole
You
first...
bribed them.
my whole first term, I wasn't even involved.
Well, that was because you had class when we had our meetings, so and hopefully we've fixed that. But I mean, when you look back, Brian, and you know, you're going to be graduating before too long.
March.
Yeah, so you will finish in winter term of next year. When you look back at all of this, what's going to stand out to you about your time with the Nightly News?
The one thing that I think of with the Nightly News is, one, bringing the speaker series. My one goal when I got my job with iHeart is I want to find a way to get us connected with them as much as possible. Bringing Bob Howard, bringing Glenn Hamilton, R.J. Harris, I think bringing him was one of the coolest things.
All of them have been 35, 40, 50 people at all of these events. It's been really quite incredible.
And that's, I mean, I don't know how public we've been with it, but we're going to bring Tom Russell in, that's from CBS 21. But no, I've always wanted to be like Curtis. I've always wanted to be like the ambassador of this whole place. And I mean, Nightly News was the first one that gave me that opportunity. I mean,
well, just thinking about what you've done, just being a part of our first sports broadcast,
exactly.
And now you're pretty much going to continue to be involved with them. I mean, to be able to look back at that and at the legacy that you've built just in the club, is profound.
Yeah, I mean, speaking at the inauguration was huge. Being the first senior resident assistant is probably going to be one of the main things I'll always remember. Just the school, though, in general, it really has done a lot. And I mean, I think am I one of the first students to work at the radio while I'm here?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah. So I mean,
what you've already accomplished, and we're going to be starting with PCN here in the fall.
Next term is next term. Yeah.
So you've already got a resume of somebody with multiple years of experience, and you're not even graduated from college yet. So.
But yeah, no. If you would have told me in April 10th, 2017, it was a Monday at 9:00 in the morning, that I would have met all the people I have through iHeart, all these celebrities, all this, I would have told you, get out of here. I mean, that's just a PG version. We'll go with that.
Of course.
But no, getting involved with you, Professor Miller, I honestly have to thank you so much. You've done more than... And you know, I don't really say this, mate, but you are honestly my father down here.
Well, I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. And to be honest, it's my job, and you meet me halfway, which is what's great. In fact, sometimes you're more than halfway. You're about 75%, and I'm about 25%. You really go above and beyond. But you are a perfect example of what Central Penn can do for people.
Yeah.
You came here and you were willing to get involved.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, that's just, trust me, just from working with a lot of students who are new to campus, just don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
And now you've got internship sites fighting for you. You know, if things all goes well with PCN, you might be able to get hired on there. You're already working with iHeartMedia. I mean, and you're just turned 21 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have people fighting for you when you get out of here.
Yeah.
And you've earned everything you've gotten.
That's great.
Yeah. That Little League, though, I was just up there with Williams Sport. It was one of the best times I've ever had. And I thank you, because, I mean, you prepared me for that last year, giving me all this advice and all that. And I thanked her in my inauguration speech for getting me so inspired.
Anything I can ever do, anytime you need advice, let me know, and I'll be happy to share.
I was honestly glad Dan Garissi asked me to be part of the color guard for that ceremony.
Oh, yeah.
Being in the military and didn't get to do a color guard ceremony, and being a part of that ceremony, being a color guard, was absolutely breathtaking. And once again, I thank you for that shout-out you gave me during that inauguration ceremony, too.
You're welcome.
That was very heartful.
You're welcome.
Dr. Fedrizzi, as you think back, obviously we've talked about this in previous podcasts. Mm-hmm. You certainly come from a broadcasting background. What does it mean to you to have been a part of all of the things that we've done, not only with just the podcast, but the sporting events as well, and some of the articles that we've written about you over? What does it mean to you to have our organization be so involved with you in your office?
I love what you all do. And first of all, the podcasts are one of my most favorite things because it brings me back to my radio days. And at my last college, I started our radio station, just like you. We didn't have one, and so I started a radio station, built a radio class around it, and the class's job was to run the radio station. That was all their assignments. And so being able to participate is incredible. The coverage and the support that you've all provided. I remember the day that I that I was announced the president, there were student reporters in the audience.
That was myself and
was it
Dylan and
you and Dylan and Michael Adamola. Was he there?
He was there.
He
Yeah.
was taking pictures, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was an wow. That flew.
That was only just over a year ago. And what
Yeah.
I'll say is there were a lot of articles written when that announcement was done, but they wrote the best article. And I was so impressed and so proud that they did that. You have the most involved students in the entire campus are part of this. The CPC players are pretty close. They're really involved too. But your group is so collaborative, and they're the first to volunteer to be at anything. So I have loved watching you evolve, because when right before I made the decision to come here, I was online looking at things, and I saw that you had a podcast, and I saw that you were just like really starting up, because that was just over 3 years ago. And so to come here and see how much you're doing, and Paul, I see you all the time up here with different students, different podcasts. You're covering all aspects of the college, and it's not something you have to do. He doesn't have to do this.
No.
He does this because he loves this. And the other thing I will say is, you made a comment when you and I first met about your mentor and your college professor and how
Dr. Laux.
Yes, and how he changed your life, and he was always there for you. And if you haven't realized it, you're doing the same thing.
And that's part of why I love what I do. I mean, it's not just the only reason, but it's certainly part of the reason that I decided to go into this line of work. Anybody, in a general sense, finding your way to get a full-time position at a college is... I wish somebody would have told me how difficult it would have been. You know, I'm very fortunate to be here. I'm very lucky to be here, and trust me, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about that.
And I mean that. Well, one of the things, RJ asked about you all the time. He was really impressed, Professor Miller.
Well, I appreciate that. And for somebody he's a radio legend.
Yeah.
He's been on the air since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have the utmost respect for him as
Yeah.
well. You know, I just kind of want to close the podcast with this thought. When I think back to all of the things that we've done over the years, you know, the podcast is the one thing that always sticks out to me, because I've always, you know, helped set everything up, and I'm booking the shows and I'm editing the shows, and it's something that I love. I mean, I just absolutely, a part of me wishes I could have, you know, cracked into the radio business and you know, made it a longer term career. But the fact that I've been able to come full circle and not only continue to do this as part of my job, but also share that with passion with others, for you know, Brian to be working in the industry already, it's really incredible. But really, what I love the most is how our group is always on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We might, you know, bicker a little bit about some minor things, but honestly, and nothing is more clear, and I got to be very careful how I say what I'm about to say, because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on our surprise for Dr. Fedrizzi. But our last club meeting, we were talking about our podcast celebration, and we had a question that came out, and we did some brainstorming just right there in the middle of the meeting, and the response that we got was one of the best responses. And I love that that's how we do things. We do things collaboratively, whether it's being in the research exhibition and, you know, making movement on you know, helping increase recycling here on campus,
right,
whether it's being a part of this amazing podcast and really getting to work with just a variety of people all over campus that I probably wouldn't really have a chance to interact with much. But really, in the end, it's when you guys graduate and when you walk across that stage, you know, there's no way that I can have a dry eye when any of my people, especially club members, are graduating. It's really just profound. And this 100th episode, it's a celebration because it's been 3.5 years. When we first started, we weren't really on a regular fixed schedule. We didn't have a cool studio like we have now.
You were over in the CTE room, right?
We were doing the CTE, and I'm putting this best of together. And honestly, it's so difficult. I don't even know if I can use any of the early stuff because the quality is just so poor. But you know what we did? We went out, we fundraised for every piece of equipment in this studio. We worked hard to try to get some space. And we're so happy that you're down here utilizing the space with us as well. And we certainly hope that we're, of course, respectful.
I love having you down here. Don't even give it a second thought.
Well, I just want you guys to know, and I want everybody to know, that the nightly news is a very, very significant part of my job because I love it. I see the value in it, and I want nothing more than to continue. So it's not like it's the celebration of an ending. It's really the celebration of a continuation of the wonderful things we've done since we started in 2016.
Also, we want to thank Sherry Long We want to thank Yuli, Cy Penthon. I just want to thank Norman Gary, Fontaine McClure, Lawrence Wilson, the man. But there's so many people I want to thank. Nasir for all that he did. I mean, it's just great. All the people you brought in, Professor, really have done a great job.
Well, thank you.
And like I tell students that want to join, I said, join Nightly News. You learn a lot. Like, being on a podcast teaches you with communication skills and learn it and express your opinion about topics that are going on in the world. Like, as an accounting major, at first I thought I wouldn't fit in with Nightly News because a lot of them are communication majors. Mm-hmm. They took me under their wing and accepted me for being and taught me so much about how important it is to communications and all.
But Parker, that's the thing. That's where how we try to market ourselves is like, it doesn't have to be a communication student. Writing and, interpersonal communication are two major things that all employers want.
Right.
And in fact, you might have a benefit because maybe other accounting students weren't in this type of environment.
100%.
And I tell accounting students that because I'm a tutor in the Learning Center, I tell them, I said, hey, join Nightly News because if you want to become a CPA or you want to do tax or anything, you're going to deal with clients. You're going to have to talk to them face to face. You might have to take them to a ball game to get them to invest in your business or do something. So get the skills now while they're here. Like just joining a club.
You're right.
And getting on the podcast. And they're having fun doing it. You're enjoying your time.
Dr. Fedrizzi, I just want to thank you so very much for being a wonderful leader here at the college. Certainly you came in, there was a lot of things in flux, and you've definitely stabilized the college. There's no question about it. And certainly with the strategic plan that you're working on, we can only hope that you're just here forever.
Well, I would love that. And I want to say congratulations on your 100th podcast. And to all of you, I think you all deserve congratulations here because you're really the reason why it's so successful. So great job.
Well,
Dr. Fedrizzi, I need a favor from you, though. I can't say it on here, but I need a favor from you.
All right, we'll talk off air.
we were glad to have you on the podcast for this milestone.
Good.
Well, and we appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule because I know that you're extremely busy.
It's okay, I love it.
All right, well, that is going to do it for episode number 100. I want to thank Parker Rose and Brian Christiana for being a major part of this and for going out and finding the questions.
Great questions.
So, and I appreciate all the hard work that you spent on that. And of course, Dr. Linda Fedrizzi-Williams, thank you so much for being here on episode number 100. All right, well, that's going to do it for this podcast. We will see you again on episode 101. We'll be back at the beginning of the fall term. So until then, keep listening to the Best Of Show. We'll see you next time.